talk about three films kind of loosely under the theme of transnational post-apocalyptic film. The first one is the 1988 anime classic AKIRA, which is very dear to my heart because anime was very important to me growing up. My wife and I literally met because of our mutual interest in anime. We met in high school. She was president of the anime club. We were those nerds. It was delightful. So Akira is this film that just kind of came and really changed how people, especially in the West, especially outside of Japan, really perceived the genre. Because it's this just epic, gritty, really just intense, very adult film, even though it's about teenagers, basically. The plot of the film is very much about teenage friend drama. You've got these two guys who have their friendship. It's complicated. One of them is very jealous of the other one, and it's basically about their friendship.
Right.
But also in the context of, we live in this post-apocalyptic world where nukes have gone off, things have gotten destroyed, and for some reason there's like this weird radiation superpower thing going on that is never fully explained, but whatever, it's fun. So
Neo Tokyo.
Yes, Neo Tokyo.
That opening is incredible with the bomb.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Then they showed the city. Oh man.
Yeah, and like this epic, like cyberpunk Neo Tokyo city that everyone lives in, and it's like they just kind of pretend the apocalypse didn't happen for all intents and purposes. People just kind of carry on with their life in the city, and that's kind of what, you know, what they talk about. Like the government person who's in the film and the military guy just kind of talk about that. It's like, well, people wanted to build and build and build, and now that we're kind of done with that, it's like, well, where do we go from here? You know, how do we keep the people satisfied? And then Akira is this child, like being who possesses this like insane amount of power, is basically God, and his power goes into this teenage boy named Tetsuo, and his friend who he's jealous of, Kaneda, is trying to basically, you know, keep him from being experimented on by the government, is kind of how it starts. And then everything just gets out of hand, and Tetsuo just kind of goes on this freaking rampage. And that's pretty much in a nutshell how it goes. So just the fact that this film has done so much for anime in general, getting adults on board with it, getting people to recognize that it has so much potential as a type of media, is just really, really incredible to me. Did any of you have stuff you wanted to say about it? Henry, like, I know this one is very important to you as well.
I love AKIRA.
Yeah.
What?
No, I haven't seen it. Now
I think it's a key science fiction movie for anyone to see, no matter what country they live in, or whether it's animated or not. But like when I start thinking of science fiction movies that I like that are kind of slightly off center, because I really don't like too many. That I do like Star Trek, but I mean, besides that kind of stuff, Akira is one of the first ones I think of. I also think of Liquid Sky.
On my list now because of that. I didn't know anything about it.
It was a hit in the theater here. It was a hit in the theater here, and me and Keith were probably around college age-ish when it came out. I didn't really pay attention to it, but I remember
when I was in college, people were saying, "Well, the only anime you really need to see is Akira because everything else is the same," which I did not agree with.
That is entirely false.
No, that is false.
But it is a good entry. It is a good entry drug for people. If you have someone who says, "I don't like anime," or they haven't seen it, this is a good one to introduce them to, and they're like, "Well, that was pretty good." It's like, "Oh, let's try a little Ghost in the Shell."
You have to explain to people in America that manga is a medium; it is not a genre.
Exactly.
And you also have to explain that anime is a genre, as a medium or a technique. It's not a genre either. But
exactly.
You can't call it.
You still have to tell people that with comic books.
Well, you can. You can call it a genre in the way that I lazily and millions of other geeks do too call blaxploitation a genre. It's not a genre. I mean, not really. It's like a wave, like the French New Wave.
Yeah, like that. Wave is better.
Yeah.
It is better, but I do them interchangeably because I'm lazy with thinking sometimes. I try not.
I mean, I already misspoke on that, and I initially called it a genre, like within this conversation, and then I corrected myself. So like. Yeah.
Yeah, but you pronounce the Japanese names pretty dead on.
I try.
I make a point too.
Yeah,
people
it is
look at me
AKIRA.
funny.
It is not AKIRA.
AKIRA.
Yes.
Because us Americans, we put stress on the first syllable and we draw it out, and the second syllable we really draw out. Whereas Japanese put a slight stress on the first, and then they kind of fold in the second and third.
Yeah.
Somewhere it's almost not there. That vowel is almost not there. So AKIRA, it's almost like AKIRA.
Yeah,
that's how a
AKIRA.
Japanese person would say it. I mean, but I'm not going to do that every time. I'm going to say it more like.
But however you pronounce it,
but not like an American.
It should not have been in the cartoon section of Blockbuster, which is where I would find it. In the cartoon section. The cartoon section. But I got a better one. Legend of the Overfiend. Uruka Doji was in the kids section, and even I, who was thinking,
like
oh,
NC-17
this is funny.
Rated.
Oh my god! I had to go to the front
X.
and say, listen, I don't want you to take this film away, but you got to get out of the kids section. Someone's going to.
Oh my god! It really was there.
Oh yeah. I don't know how they even.
Well, some people really do see animation and they just assume for children, period, no matter what it is. And, you know, unless you literally have like very sexually explicit content or something on the cover, people are gonna be like, oh, this is for kids. And it's like,
well, manga and anime are blown up. Like I don't even want to say definitely with millennials, but Gen Z has grown up with anime being all over all of the streaming services. So and the last several jobs,
Death Note and One Piece, I haven't seen
exactly.
Them,
Okay, so speaking as a millennial, yes, we did grow up with anime. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Although it was not streaming services for us. It was, you know, you'd stay up late watching.
You had to look for it.
Adult Swim or, you know, things like that.
Right.
See,
now you don't have to.
Anime as a kid was, you know, like staying up late to watch stuff with my TV on. So
my introduction was Robotex.
that was what I first heard of as anime, even though I was already into anime as a medium, and I didn't know that because I watched I saw Astro Boy when I was like 5 years old. Kid with the White Lion didn't play in Charlotte. It played in one town in North Carolina that I know of, but not here. So I didn't know it existed.
Kimba was mine when I was 4. I was watching Kimba.
Wow, you got Kimba's like my totem. Yeah. I wrote a 5,000 word article about him, but it's on my website. You should check it out.
I saw the sequel series, Leo the Lion. That was on
Leo
CBN
the Lion.
for a while. It was on CBN for a while.
Let's not go down that rabbit hole because once you start getting into
that's another show.
Tezuka alone could be like 5 shows.
And I'll start talking about Marine Boy because I love Marine Boy.
Right.
Marine Boy was
I'll start talking about the Phoenix.
Well, Tezuka was an important guy, and I'll just say this real quick. Astro Boy was the first anime shown in America as a regular series. It was black and white. Kimba was the first one shown in color, and they're both directed by Aki Yamamoto, who now has resurfaced as a cult movie figure because after like 30 years, his movie Belladonna of Sadness now has had a wide Blu-ray and DVD and theatrical re-release. And the same man that did the very adult Belladonna of Sadness did Kimba the White Lion, and it's like the dude's got range. You got to respect that. And a lot of Japanese directors are like that, not just of anime but of live action. And it's amazing. It's not like in America. In America, you hit a niche. You don't do extreme movies. You know, you just do kind of middle of the road. You don't do kids movies. You don't do extreme movies. When David Lynch did The Straight Story, people were like, "What the hell?"
Yeah.
A G-rated Disney. I'm like, watch it. Shut up and watch it.
Well, let's
I remember that was the reaction. The strangest thing is Walt Disney presents a film by David Lynch.
It's one of his best movies, in my opinion.
Before we get off this topic and back onto Kaelyn's thing,
yes, thank you.
I would just point out that that part of I think the amazing thing about something like Kimba was that it was long form storytelling before there was long form storytelling for kids. I mean, it was.
That's true.
As a 4-year-old, I'm right there, and this is telling a long range story. I mean, childhood to adulthood. You know, it's great stuff. But anyway,
Hey, Kaelyn, when we do vampires, we got to do Vampire Hunter D because I love that film.
I
didn't like the dubbing. I don't like the dubbing from that guy who dubs all those things, but I do love it. I just hate the English version, which most people.
Wow, sure.
Go ahead, Kaelyn.
All right, so AKIRA and post-apocalyptic stuff.
Yeah, that's
we're all very good at staying on topic here.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Myself absolutely included. My ADHD meds have worn off for the day. I don't know how to stay on topic. Anyway, I did have one more thing I wanted to mention, though, just because of on the pronunciation point, because this is very important. With trying to pronounce the names correctly in Japanese or any other non-Western European media, I think that's something that's just very important, and it's important to me. And actually, one of my friends who is Japanese American was just talking about this on Facebook the other day. The fact that like the biscuits, the long biscuits that are coated in like chocolate or yogurt or something like that, it's not pronounced Pocky, it's pronounced Pokey, which is
I see. I didn't know that.
Yeah, yes. I didn't know.
Yeah. I learned that a while back.
Because that is a strange spelling for Pokey.
She mentioned that, and I was just like, oh, that's right. That's the whole thing. And she was talking about how laziness with pronunciation kind of makes people think that they don't need to try very hard with pronouncing her name correctly or her children's names correctly. And it just all builds on it like that.
I have customers who like the way I pronounce their names.
Yeah.
Asian people, and that's good.
Yeah.
They always look at me like, how do you know that? And I'm like,
that
hey, man,
reminds me of David
Lynch.
David Lynch talking about how he would say Machinamic's name Madchkin, and that was like his little
Machinamic. That means woman. I don't know what her parents were thinking exactly, but at least they're not in Germany, because they'd be, hey woman, what's up? So did you have anything else about AKIRA, Kaelyn?
I guess the only thing that I didn't really touch on yet, or anyone else has brought up yet, that I think is very important, is we also talked about at the beginning, Henry, you talked about how the apocalypse might have been caused by any number of different things, and this is definitely one of those examples of a post-apocalyptic nuclear kind of thing. And it really speaks to like the Cold War fears at the time, and also the post Hiroshima and Nagasaki time, where like Japan actually was the victim of nuclear bombing. The victim of nuclear bombing in the world. We've had nuclear accidents, we've had nuclear waste problems, we've had disasters and stuff, but they're the ones that were targeted in a time of war. So I think that's really important culturally, and then also just the continued Cold War fear that was going on in the 80s, because this came out in 88. That was like right before the Cold War ended. So, you guys talked about like as a generational thing having that be a fear in everybody's mind. Just the timing of it with the film.
Yeah, when the Berlin Wall fell, it started to abate a little, but then now that's re-escalated. It's much worse now than it was when I was a child.
Yeah.
I mean, the anti-Russision rhetoric is the anti-Russian vibe is getting close to how it was when I was probably like 8 or 10 years old. Now, admittedly, I grew up here in the South, so it's you're always going to have more prejudiced people in the South back then. Though Charlotte now is a lot more metropolitan. But
I mean, I remember even when I was in high school, people were starting to get a little freaked out by all of this. I dated a guy who was like absolutely convinced that we were like a few years away from all-out nuclear war, and I was just like, "Whoa, bro, I'm gonna need you to slow your roll on that."
Well, now we are. Now we're probably a year or two away. I mean, and I'm not based on what I've read in the last week alone, we're probably a year or two away from it.
But
it could,
it's not.
It
well,
could
we
be
don't
sooner.
have to worry about it, because tomorrow's the rapture, and it's all going to be over anyway.
Okay.
No, the rapture was like yesterday.
But I'm not one of the 1,000, Keith.
Oh no! That was the September 19th rapture. Now there's the 23rd.
Oh, there's a 23rd rapture. Okay.
It's been nice knowing you guys. I'm out of here.
Rapture.
See you, bro.
Like, buy one get one free.
Oh, it's happening.
Take me away, God.
Well, I'm still here, just like I thought I would be. All right, cool.
Yeah.
Why not, man?
Okay, so I can't stand those people.
So
Kaelyn has an incredible one to talk about.
Yes. So that's AKIRA. Love it. If you haven't seen it, cannot recommend it enough. Especially if you're not someone who's like super into anime in general. It's a very, very good kind of part of the canon that just everybody ought to see. So then Children of Men is another one that I wanted to talk about. And this one, for the transnational point, it's based very loosely on a British novel, and then was adapted into this film by a Mexican filmmaker, Alfonso Cuarón, who is one of my favorites. I love him. And really speaks to me as an American watching it. So there's like all of this cultural stuff. And I rewatched it today, actually, because I realized it had been 10 years since the last time I watched it, and I was like, oh boy, it's been a minute. I should probably give this another go. And there's a whole lot of stuff with anti-immigrant and anti-refugee sentiment in it. And I would argue that more so than the apocalypse of people losing the ability to have children, there hasn't been a child born in like 17 years at the time that the film begins. It's really about xenophobia. And watching this again now, 10 years after the last time I watched it, in a post-Brexit world and in a post-Trump world, you know, was fascinating to say the least. Just the immigration stuff was extraordinarily salient for me. So you see all of these things in the background with like, if you see anything reported or reporting suspicious activity, refugees are called Fugees, and they're just treated as not even second-class citizens, but as people to be deported. That's the entire point. Everybody's being deported or they're being killed. When the characters finally make it at the end of the film to a refugee camp, when they're being kind of transferred in, you see people just, you know, kneeling on the ground, hands behind their heads, soldiers walking around with guns. It's like, what do you think is going to happen to those people? They're not getting into the camp. They're going to be executed just right on the spot. And the fact that the woman who is the first person to be pregnant to anybody's knowledge in 17 years is a Black immigrant woman is profoundly important. Her name is Key. They don't really specify which country she was from, I believe, in the film, but you have this Black woman basically being, you know, poised to be the savior of humanity. But at the same time, she says, my baby's not a symbol. You know, she just wants to be able to raise her kid like any parent would. That's not what's on her mind. She's like, I just want me to be safe. I want my baby to be safe. I want to take care of him, although it ends up being a girl. And I think there's this whole thing about autonomy and doing what's right for you and your kid and your family versus what's good for the world. And it's like, do you get to be, you know, quote unquote selfish in a time like that or not?
That's a tough one.
Yeah. And I'm also seeing that theme come up a lot in media since then. Like, I saw so many parallels between this and The Last of Us. Love the show, love the video games. Except in that case, you know, it's a young girl who is immune to the virus that turns everybody into zombies. And in this case, it's one woman who is pregnant, inexplicably. And the focus isn't really on how, it's just on, well, this is the humanity and this is the story. So, and there's this really beautiful moment in the film towards the end, when it's everybody around, like there's war going on, there's an uprising going on, people see that she's pregnant and everything just kind of stops for a minute. There's no more music like in the background, there's no more gunfire. Anytime a soldier sees the baby that she is carrying because she has given birth, they're just like, whoa, ceasefire, like, and everybody just looks. But then there's an explosion and everyone just gets right back on with it. So there's kind of this like optimism, pessimism thing where it's like, is humanity going to be okay? Because, oh my goodness, somebody is pregnant. Can we replicate this? Or are people just going to keep on being preoccupied with what's right in front of their noses?
Yeah.
Until everyone dies out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a powerful movie for sure, and I think that's partly why it wasn't financially successful, because it's an incredible movie, and at the time that it came out, I just think people didn't want to be reminded that you know, people suck, which is you know,
2006 is when this came out. So
5 years after the Twin Towers thing, I think it was just the wrong time. But I mean, it's clearly, I mean, it has gained in reputation and respect over the years, you know.
Yeah, I think there's something about that, like it was the wrong time, but it was also very much the right time. I think like as a piece of art, it is so a product of that year and that time. But you know, for commercial success purposes, people did not want to hear, hey, y'all are being xenophobic and terrible and people suck. People wanted to hear, you know, rah, go us.
Team America World Police. No, I totally agree that this movie was made at the right time, but not from a corporate standpoint.
Yeah.
From a commercial standpoint, it was probably close to the worst possible time for it to come out. But
if there's
it's a great snapshot movie in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think if there's one thing we're learning, or to varying degrees depending on who learns it when, but if one thing we're learning in the current regime in America and in the world is that the corporations are very out of touch with what people like.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
very out of touch. And the corporations own the government. The government's extremely, totally out of touch with what we want.
Yeah, and the government can be the United States, it can be Britain, it can be Mexico, it can be pretty much anywhere, you know.
Yeah. And when we're talking the entertainment oligarchs in a sense, that it's like I always say, when one movie hits and makes $1 billion, the studios are going to take away the absolute wrong message on why it succeeded, and if a movie tanks, they're going to take away the exact wrong reasons why it tanked. They never get it right.
Well, that's why it's like Barbie was based on a toy. Let's make lots of movies based on toys.
Right. The absolute wrong thing to take away from Barbie's success is,
but on the inverse side of it, though, Bob Iger doesn't get Marvel. He doesn't understand it. He doesn't understand how it works in fans' minds. So he wants to totally neutralize it and totally control the output of product. So there goes the MCU. I predict that's gonna, if he's in control, the MCU is gonna it's not gonna be a big thing anymore in a couple of years. I mean, they're having trouble getting everything made.
I feel like it's starting to die. I personally, myself, am feeling a little bit less invested now. I feel like the Avengers trilogy kind of, with a couple of things that have come out since then, I've really enjoyed. I loved the shut out of Loki. I loved the shut out of WandaVision.
Right. I love them individually. Yeah, that's how I look at it.
Yeah, but the MCU in general, I'm just kind of man, there's multiple things I haven't seen yet. I just got around to watching Guardians of the Galaxy 3 a couple weeks ago, for example, and it's been out for a year. So
I used to be there opening night, and now the last week, does it feel like the last week for the Marvels has been one story after another that sounds like things people say when they think a movie's going to bomb and they don't want to get blamed for it? I mean, whoever's in charge of marketing at Disney needs to be executed. They are doing a horrible job. I still think the movie might be good and might actually make money.
It might,
boy.
My sidebar opinion on Marvel and their future, I think, is that really, I agree. I think Bob Iger is not the guy to be making the decisions. But I think Feige is hanging in there in the hopes that he can salvage where they're, what's happening and to go forward. But I really kind of think the idea that he's operating on is get to the Secret Wars and wrap things up, and then
get more billions.
Well, yeah, but once you get to the Secret War, you can kind of use that as a way to sort of end this thing in a way, and then can be able to continue forward and do different stuff.
I think the exact opposite. I think they're going to use Secret War to reboot the whole thing with a bunch.
Well, that's what I mean. But
they could do that.
Well, I think that's.
It'll be like destroy all monsters.
But I think from Feige's standpoint, it's let's sort of put a bow on it with Secret Wars, and then from that point you can go into all kinds of different directions with it, and he can pass the baton, kind of a thing. I think that's where he's trying to do, but that doesn't mean that someone like Iger couldn't push him out, and then that never happens or never happens like he meant it to be. But I think that's what he's trying to get to, is that let's get all of these things, let's do it all, get to this point, bring it all together, tie a bow on it, and then set them free, basically, and do whatever you will from here.
I've just got no faith in these people. They're having trouble figuring out how to crack the script for Blade. God damn, I'll write the damn script for Blade. It's about a vampire hunter.
I grew up with Blade. I know that guy better than they do.
It writes itself. Damn,
it does.
Once again, need to do a vampire episode.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
it just keeps coming up today.
He does keep coming up.
Well, it's Halloween, so we probably will.
Yeah. All right. Well,
let me say real quick that this is a plug. This justifies cutting off topic. I want to plug something that me and Keith and Scott were part of. We've got a 2-part Secret Invasion series, which I personally think is great. The first one's doing okay. The second one kind of bombed. It's a lot longer. I think people didn't want to hear us and go into that much detail, but we don't approach these things like everybody else does. Which that was one of my major reason I want to do this is, unlike everyone else on the internet, me and Tim and Keith didn't hate Secret Invasion, and we explained exactly why we liked it and what we didn't like about it without resorting to, just complete insanity. So if I mention Secret Invasion on the internet, people yell at me and it's or I see them talking and I hate it, and it's whatever, I thought it was great as a drama. I don't give a damn about, how it fits into the MCU. I to an extent I did, but I don't care about, how the ratings were or what Rotten Tomatoes says I'm supposed to think. I liked it. I thought Sam did an Emmy worthy of performance, and it had a lot to say about race and interracial relationships, and a lot to say about a lot of things that are going on in the world. And unfortunately, because of the way it was put together, it just didn't have the tone people wanted. And you never know what fan bros want. Fan bros are the most despicable creatures on the earth. I have to mention this at least once in every video on my channel. Fan bros suck, and they really make fandom sad for the rest of us who are fans.
Well, your opinion was so off-putting. You chased Bill off.
Billy?
I hope he's just in the bathroom.
Yeah, I
already chased Justin off. No, Justin sent me a text. He said he had to go, but he really had a great time.
All right.
So Kaelyn, do you want to talk about your other movie?
Yeah, sure. So last but not least, is Snowpiercer. And I'm going to start this off by saying I have not read the graphic novel yet. I have not seen the show yet. I have only experienced the movie.
Has anyone here read the graphic nope,
I read the first volume.
Okay, all right,
cool.
So
I kind of know what it's like. It's French. I didn't read it in French because I couldn't get it in French from the library. But anyway, but yeah, it's about this train. They develop this artificial meat, and it's the train just keeps going on forever.
Perpetual motion. So go ahead, Kaelyn. Pick up that thread, I guess.
So, Snowpiercer, 2013 film. Directed by Bong Joon-ho, who is fabulous. I haven't seen all of his stuff, but I am working on it because I really enjoyed several of his films.
I've seen all but 2 early ones.
Yeah, nice.
But I didn't watch him on a binge. I just love South Korean movies, and after a while, I watched a few, and I wasn't on the host train like everybody else was. I liked it. I think it's his weakest movie that I've seen, which are 8 movies. But I watched it and I was like, oh, this is cool. And then I watched another movie, Memories of Murder or whatever. And I was like, oh, it's the same guy. And then Mother. And then by this time, I'm forming a pattern because I'm bad with the Korean names at first. So I'm like, oh, who is this guy? Oh, he made all 3 of them? And then it kind of comes together. And then I started filling in the gaps. But by that time, I'd seen Snowpiercer. And I was like, oh, he did that too. This is incredible.
Yeah. Actually, Parasite was my introduction to his stuff, which I absolutely loved. Oh my god! That was one of the movies I just saw. By the end of it, I was just that's one of the best films I've ever seen in my life, and it remained true on a rewatch. So, primo, great movie. Basically, I saw that, and then somebody was just like, "You should really see Snowpiercer," and I was like, "Okay, yeah, I'll check it out." And then I was just like, "That was also one of the best freaking movies I've ever." God, I love both of them a lot. So
yeah, I like the movie. Yeah, I like the movie. I haven't read the graphic novel, never watched the series, just the movie. It's a great little movie. Yeah.
So tell us about it.
Scott said, it's people end up on this insanely long train going all around the world on this absurdly long track. There's this artificial protein source that sustains people, as far as we know. It's this whole thing. It is not a Soylent Green moment. Still gross. But so this one is, and this is getting at why I love post-apocalyptic film, is that this one, along with Children of Men, along with AKIRA, is, besides the transnational aspect, just the fact that we get to see people at their best and their worst is really what I love about this genre. And Snowpiercer is a phenomenal example of that, because you follow these guys from the back of the train who are the lower class people on the train. They are called freeloaders by people who sit higher up. They're people who didn't pay for a ticket. They just got on the train, and they're basically subjected. They work, they do like the worst jobs. Their children get taken from them for whatever, they don't know why. People get taken up to the front if they have special skills that are desired. For example, a man who plays the violin is taken for some reason. And basically these guys decide to start a revolution. You find out that there have been previous revolutionary attempts in the last 17 years that they've been on the train, but none of them have succeeded. Also, the reason that they're on the train in the first place is because basically humans tried to fix global warming by making the planet cold. Unfortunately, they succeeded spectacularly, and now it's impossible to survive because it is too cold. And everybody instantly freezes.
It's easy to criticize people from the back seat, but our intentions were good.
Yeah, it's kind of like I just saw the Star Trek episode Miri again, how they try to extend their lives and it only works for people who are prepubescent.
Yeah.
And everybody else dies.
This is how we learn.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Kaelyn.
Yeah. So they start this revolution, and basically the goal becomes, get to the front of the train, be like, we're not taking it anymore. So they go through this whole process. They try to do all of that. They encounter things that they have to fight at some point, because obviously the guards aren't going to stand for it. And it's basically the protagonist of this is a guy who was on the back of the train. And as you go through the course of the film, you realize people kind of see him as a hero, but he doesn't see himself as a hero. And then by the end of the film, you find out exactly why he doesn't see himself as a hero. He sees himself as like this awful person who's done the horrible things. And this guy that he idolized was the best of humanity, but that guy was also kind of screwed up. So it's this whole thing. And basically the train kind of functions as a microcosm for humanity, where you see all of this like class warfare. And, the antagonist of the film, the guy who created the train, goes on this speech at the end where he's like, everybody has their place and they have to stay in that place, and it's preordained, and that's just the way it is, basically.
It's the way oligarchs think.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
And
it's easy to say that from a position of privilege, where you're at the front of the train, you get to eat steak every day. You don't have these disgusting protein bars. Your kids aren't being taken from you. You have a comfortable place to sleep. You're clean, all of that stuff. But all of you down there need to stay in your place. And also, we're going to kill you off, so we have precisely the right number of humans alive.
Mm-hmm.
Golly gee, that sounds like how capitalism works in real life.
Yeah.
Everything to maintain the system.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You got to keep the train moving, right?
Well said.
Well, also, basically lying to everybody and saying there's no way you can survive outside. And I mean, from their perspective, they don't know for sure that you can survive outside, but there's suspicions that maybe actually you might be able to at this point. And that's
we don't learn until near the end that Nam has believed it all along.
Yeah.
Nam is the most brilliant guy on the train.
Yeah.
But unfortunately he has a drug problem.
Is he the guy who runs the library?
No, he's the Korean star, Kang Song-ho.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He's the co-star with Chris Evans.
Yes.
And he only speaks in Korean, so,
Yeah. And the love of his life was an Inuit woman who led one of the other revolution attempts, and she and some others jumped train, went outside, froze to death. Granted, that was a long time ago. That was years ago. And also they were on a mountain. So, there are maybe some slightly less cold places that you could try to get off the train. Maybe not in the mountains. But that's what happened then. And so he has this theory because he passes every year this plane that's crashed on the ground below a bridge, and he sees more of it become visible every year. And he's just like, the snow is melting, guys. We could go outside instead of staying on this freaking train. Don't be so like what's right in front of you. Consider other possibilities. And he teaches his daughter that as well. And she ends up being really the most heroic figure in the movie, to be completely honest. Like,
yeah.
Love her.
Yeah, me too. I love that actress.
And she's remarkably brave. She's the one who's like, yeah, no, I'm gonna go for it. So yeah. So it's fantastic. Yeah.
It's definitely a South Korean movie, and I think if more people who were into foreign film and movies would see it as that and not just a genre movie with some Hollywood stars, they probably would like it a lot better. You know, I mean, it was, you know, I think the casting, it got a lot of people into his stuff, but it also turned away fans, you know, art house fans to it because they see it as commercial. And I mean, the movie now is like so commonplace, and it's gotten to where like the Blu-ray is worth nothing. I got it for $250 at Second and Charles. Then I had a 30% discount, so it was like kind of a no-brainer. I was going to buy it anyway, but you know, it's I don't know about critically where it stands. Since he did Parasite, people might be reevaluating it. I'm not sure.
And Parasite is like even more like, you know, it's just straight up, this is a South Korean film. You're gonna love it, you're going to hate it. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant, but it's more obvious that it is a South Korean film. It is set in real world South Korea with realistic, you know, situations. We're not in this post-apocalyptic weird train situation. So it amazes me that film did so much better. I think thanks to word of mouth and hype and people just being like, this movie's amazing, go see it.
I feel like
I was amazed to find out that whole neighborhood was a set because it doesn't look like it, but of course they had to flood it.
Right.
I think the Zeke guy shifted because, I mean, the things I heard people who weren't into foreign movies as much as I am say about that movie who liked it were things I've been saying about South Korean movies for 20 years.
Yeah.
To me, they're just it's not that they only discovered this one great movie and this one great director. They discovered South Korean cinema. And I'm like, Korean culture, I've been telling y'all.
Because also like K-pop has blown up in recent years. Like, and I think that contributed a lot. Like,
it's popular on TikTok. Yeah,
people are just becoming more interested in South Korean culture in general. And like I'll include myself in that, to be completely fair. Like I grew up with a lot of Japanese culture and was really interested in that, and a lot of Chinese culture and was really interested in that. South Korean culture is a lot newer to me, and I've only been really learning about it in the last 10 or so years.
The culture is newer to me. I mean, I now know a couple people who live in Seoul on Facebook. One Stephen Ko, he's incredible, man. I think he's friends with some of you guys. But I gotta say though that the movies hooked me. I mean, as soon as I saw Old Boy, so that's like 2003. So after that, I didn't go, I love all South Korean movies, but I investigated that director, and I always loved horror movies. And I was more into, you know, I kind of explored Asia a little bit at a time. Japanese first, then Chinese, and then South Korean next. But I've got to make a hyperbolic statement that some people agree with me, some people don't. It's all good. I think if you look at a range of films over this past 20 years, I think it's starting to slack off a little now just by the law of diminishing returns. But South Korean films, even the not so great ones, are some of the best crafted movies on the planet. Best acted, best shot, lighting, you know, everything about them. They are incredibly well crafted, much more than any Hollywood movie. And now they're starting to get a little slack because there's so many, and there's such a glut for genre movies. So, you know, and not everybody can make an Old Boy, you know, or whatever. But I admire that. You know, it's just it's incredible. But go ahead.
Oh gosh, I've lost my train of thought.
Oh my gosh, it's derailed.
Terrible, guys, you shouldn't have invited me on here. I'm going to bring so many puns.
Not more than us.
I think that's most of what I wanted to say about Snowpiercer. Just again, just the best and worst of humanity that you get to see in that is what's really important to me about kind of the whole post-apocalyptic genre, because people are just struggling because of whatever happened, and you really see some really incredible things of solidarity, of people trying to help each other, of people fighting for their lives, for people around them, that revenge drive that you see, particularly in Chris Evans's character. He sees all these horrible things happening around him. By the end, he's just like, just let me through that fucking door. I need to just give this guy a piece of my mind or kill him, whatever ends up working out. You know, by the end of it, you're just like, man, I've seen so much shit. This guy needs to go down.
Curtis Everett is an incredible character. And I got to say that's by far my favorite thing Chris Evans has done. I've seen a lot of movies with Chris Evans, not because of him necessarily, because I used to dislike him. until he started like Matthew McConaughey woke up and told his agent, "Hey, get me some interesting movies, dude."
Yes.
And Ryan Reynolds, there's a few of them like that who were studs in the 2000s.
And then all of a sudden they're making these amazing things. You're just like, okay, you've got some chops. I see that now.
Yeah, exactly. And you can't be a pretty boy forever, But I love him in that movie. And I think it was stunt casting because he was Captain America. And that moral ambiguity. And I think Evans, he knocked it out of the park, man. You're with him the whole movie. And no matter everything that happens, they always close it on his face, and he gets more and more just determined, but also more and more desolate and just depressed, But he's got to keep going,
Yeah. You just keep fighting because you have to. And I think also just the interesting exchanges like regarding privilege with him, and then Wilford, yes, but also Nam, and also I forgot the daughter's name off the top of my head.
Which guy?
No, Nam's daughter. I can't think of her name.
Yona. I can't remember.
Pulled up on IMDb. I was just like, I gotta scroll down. Yes, Yona. So the two of them, I love how they come from a position of more class privilege than him, but because they're marginalized in other ways, and that's something that I'm sure the director, had as like subtext, even if not explicit in the film, because they're Asian and they're in this train controlled by a white American man, there's that too. So they have that perspective of, actually this train sucks. What if we just got off of it? Whereas his perspective is, this train really sucks. We need to like fix things around here,
I think that there's an escalating tension in the movie. I think this is what I like so much about it, and I realized last night, is that as you go through the train, nothing is really as it seems, and it gets more and more and more all the way to the last fucking scene. You are constantly second guessing. You're being second guessed by the writers and director that who is good, who's bad, who's doing what does it mean? Why do they have this train? And all the way to the end. And I've got to say, he is a great director with actors, because the villains in this movie were extremely one-dimensional. But I'll tell you what, if I saw any of them in real life, I'd probably just shoot them in the face. There's some of them,
they all had incredibly punchable faces.
When I first saw it, I started hating Tilda Swinton because she's played a few characters like that, which I think they typecast her either before or after that movie for that kind of character. And she's incredibly good at it. But that's the problem. Because those are the kind of people that think we're scum. She represents everything wrong with totalitarianism and the oligarchy. And I thought,
and also that character is a freaking wuss. Like they get to the point where it's just like, I don't want to die. I'll sell out my overlord. That's fine.
Well, give me some insight, because there's one character I don't really understand why they place so much importance. Why did they place so much importance on the unkillable hitman guy? Why? I didn't get it. I thought that was very distracting. Like, he's a badass, so this is the part of the movie where we have a badass guy. I was expecting him to give like a little quip when he shot somebody, and everybody would laugh.
But he just stays silent. He's just there killing everybody.
He's so evil looking. He looks like Rush Limbaugh, and I was like, this is bothering me. I could see this happening if they trained Rush Limbaugh. But I didn't understand why he was so formidable. Was he superhuman?
From a practical standpoint, absolutely no idea. From a symbolism standpoint, I guess like the unstoppable force of people believing in this fucked up system.
But this is what's funny is he went against everything. Remember, he breached the doors, he shot things up, he shot the soldiers who told him he's not supposed to be doing that. All he wanted to do was kill these people. I'm like, why? Why was that so important?
Because that was what he was there to do. He doesn't actually care about anybody. He's just there to do his job.
There's one line Ed Harris said that I didn't really think about until this movie, because as I'm watching, I'm thinking, okay, there's characters like Tilda Swinton, there's characters like that guy I just mentioned, and I'm like, and the teacher, she was gross, just disgusting. I'm gonna probably get a headache when I watch her on Star Trek next, but I'm trying not to. She's on the card, But and I was like, this is a little, I don't know. But he tells Curtis, he says, you're on this train. He said, insanity is something that becomes built into these people. And I'm like, literally, I was thinking they were insane, like literally clinically insane. that they weren't just following a cause or a new way of life. They were completely out of touch, even with empirical reality. And I said that, I was like, yeah, that's okay. That explains it. That's why some of them are sociopathic to an extreme, nihilistic, act crazy weird, like that teacher. I mean, some of it I know is supposed to be for
humor. God, that scene.
I was so happy when she got shot. I was happy when all of those characters died.
I feel a little bit bad for the unborn child, but
oh yeah, that was a weird touch, but it was interesting.
Yeah, like maybe don't shoot the pregnant person, although she's trying to shoot you. That's fine. It's self-defense.
Maybe you could just like cut her head off and then deliver her baby. That's what they do in a horror movie. You gotta save the baby.
I mean, she lived pretty long. Maybe emergency C-section could have done something. Who knows?
Exactly.
No, but I also love the school car scene in general. Just that part was the most horrifying to me in the entire film. That, and when you see the kids in the machine at the end.
The children were like little Nazis in school.
I know. Like,
they were repulsive.
I want to smack that one blonde girl who was just so like just like awful. Reciting all the propaganda and just like, God, you remind me of every freaking girl who bullied me when I was a child.
And Bong Joon-ho is laughing at us. You wanted to push these buttons,
Yeah.
So is that your summing thoughts? Do we want to pass to Keith, or are you
Yeah, I think we've talked about this.
You did a great job.
I gotta head off, but great talking
Bill.
to all of you. Y'all take
Good
care.
night, Bill.
Thank you,
Have
sir.
a good weekend.
Bill.
Too, buddy.
Take it easy.
Take it easy.